With most international travel either locked down or heavily monitored, stopping the spread of COVID-19 has started to become a country by country issue. With China reporting the spread to be almost entirely contained and much of Europe on heavy lockdown, the United States has become a critical country for three big reasons. One, its giant population, being the third largest in the world at over 300 million. Two, it was relatively late to be infected compared to most of Europe and Asia. And three, the regulations surrounding isolation are pretty lax compared to most other nations. Sure, some businesses have closed and many individuals have been instructed to work from home if possible, but too much of the economy depends on workers who must go in, even if they're feeling sick. Not to mention, many beaches, bars, and restaurants are still seeing massive groups of people gathering. These three factors beg the question: how many Americans will be infected with COVID 19? I would argue that at this point, as of March 19th, the United States is by far the most difficult country to predict this answer for. Based on the actions taken over the next month, this number could easily land anywhere from 5 figures through 9 figures, and it's difficult to narrow down. As many people have already mentioned, spreading viruses are well modeled by the sigmoid function, where infections appear to be exponential in the first phase and then decelerate in the second phase. Optimistically, this deceleration will be caused by properly containing the virus, but it will happen nonetheless as a population simply runs out of people to infect. This is a graph from Johns Hopkins of confirmed cases that China has reported so far. Despite a reporting error in mid-February, the spread and containment of the virus is almost perfectly modeled by a sigmoid. Since China's regulations surrounding isolation were so strict, this sigmoid plateaued at less than 100,000 cases, when it could have easily hit a billion if they simply did nothing. This begs the question: where does the US fall today within their sigmoid curve? And it's not an easy question to answer, but it's very likely that cases are still rising exponentially. I've created a tool that can hopefully help to track and answer this question on a daily basis. I'll post a link in the description if you want to check it out yourself, but this is basically just a tool to help identify when we've reached the inflection point in the sigmoid curve. Thanks to the data this pulls in from Johns Hopkins, this will update automatically on a daily basis once they've gotten the test results for that day. With that said, these graphs will probably look much different by the time you visit the site. The first graph is simply confirmed cases. The middle graph is new cases each day, calculated by taking the difference between data points. You could think of this as a derivative. And the final graph is the difference in new cases per day, similar to a second derivative. This is representative of growth. When this number is positive, that means growth is accelerating exponentially. When it's negative, growth is decelerating. As you can see in the image, the most recent data point is actually negative. While the optimistic side of me would like to think this implies we are past the inflection point in the curve, it is more realistically just an outlier, as testing in the US has yet to be perfected. For this reason, I'm using a 7-day moving average of growth rate to identify the inflection point. While one data point is good news, the flipping of the 7-day moving average would be a strong indicator that the US has the spread of the virus under control. So why is containing the virus so difficult? One of the biggest issues by far is the incubation period. It's slightly different for every individual, but on average there is roughly a 5-day period where you're contagious, but have no symptoms. People who feel completely fine might be unknowingly walking around, spreading the virus to others. Secondly, lack of testing. The vast majority of people being tested are those with symptoms, and even many people with symptoms are not being tested. The first 2 points add fuel to the fire for this third point. We have found that growth rate of the virus can be as high as 1.4 or 40% growth. If only those with symptoms are being tested and there's a 5-day incubation period, that implies that testing is roughly 5 days behind. With that said, 1.4 raised to the 5th power is 5. This is hopefully an upper bound, but it is possible that there may be as many as 5 times more cases than have been officially confirmed. The final point I want to make is that the virus can live on hard surfaces, although it isn't yet clear for how long. This means that you can be infected without coming in direct contact with somebody who's contagious. Although I'm not an expert, it's worth echoing 1,000 times over the non-controversial things that everybody can do to get this virus under control. This virus doesn't discriminate, and everyone has equal responsibility in containing it. While you might be fine if you get infected, it is entirely possible you could infect somebody who won't. So please wash your hands and isolate whenever possible. I hope everybody can stay safe as we all make it through these tough times. I'm sure I'll be checking the growth tracker on a daily basis for the next few weeks, and I'll possibly make another video if it reveals anything interesting. If you think the tracker might be a useful indicator for the near future, remember to share it with those who might agree. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching.